Hello Bio242! This short video will cover details on the structure and function of both the thyroid and the parathyroid glands. Although these two have functions that are very different, we're discussing them together because they are located so close to one another. We'll talk about the thyroid gland first. The thyroid gland consists of two lateral lobes joined together by a narrow band of thyroid tissue called the isthmus. The thyroid wraps around the trachea just below your Adam's apple. Remember palpating the thyroid in lab? It moves slightly up and down as you swallow. This image shows what the thyroid gland looks like in a human cadaver. This individual had a third lobe, the pyramidal lobe. This third lobe is found in some people, but not everyone. As you saw in lab, the thyroid gland looks very distinct under the microscope because of the large, colloid-filled follicles. Colloid is thyroglobulin plus iodine. Thyroglobulin is the precursor to thyroid hormone, and iodine is required to make functional thyroid hormone. Iodine is brought in from the blood. Thyroglobulin is produced by the follicle cells that surround each follicle. The parafollicular cells are found in between colloid follicles, and they produce the hormone calcitonin. There are actually two variants of thyroid hormone. Thyroxine, known as T4 because it contains 4 iodine atoms, and triiodothyronine, known as T3 because it contains only 3 iodine atoms. About 90% of the secreted thyroid hormone is thyroxine, or T4, but T3 is the active form. Circulating T4 gets converted to T3 in the liver and kidneys. This is why patients with liver problems may develop symptoms of hypothyroidism. They can't convert T4 to the active T3. Thyroid hormone release is regulated by the hypothalamus and the anterior pituitary. The hypothalamus secretes thyrotropin-releasing hormone, which stimulates the anterior pituitary to release thyroid-stimulating hormone. TSH then tells the thyroid to secrete thyroid hormone and produce more thyroglobulin to restock the colloid. Once thyroid hormone is released, it has a number of effects on target cells. Thyroid hormone actually enters its target cells and binds to receptors in the mitochondria, where it increases the production of ATP. Therefore, it maintains the body's metabolic rate, as described here in number 1. Increased metabolism leads to increased heat production. Thyroid hormone also increases the blood pressure by raising the heart rate and the strength of contraction. There are a variety of other ways by which thyroid hormone keeps the systems of our body functioning well, as laid out here. This is table 18.3 in your textbook. Dysregulation of thyroid hormone can have radical effects on your body's functioning. The top picture shown here is a goiter. It can be found in conjunction with hyperthyroidism, hypothyroidism, or even normal levels of thyroid hormone. But a goiter is most commonly caused by a lack of iodine in the diet. Iodine is necessary to make functional thyroid hormone. Without iodine, the thyroid follicles swell with non-iodinated, unusable colloid. Because the colloid is unusable, an individual with iodine deficiency is likely to develop hypothyroidism. Hyposecretion of thyroid hormone leads to a reduced metabolic rate and reduced body temperature, a condition known as myxedema. Myxedema left untreated may progress to coma with severe hypothermia, that's low body temperature, hypoventilation, causing a buildup of carbon dioxide in the blood and a lack of oxygen, and fluid and electrolyte imbalances. Severe hypothyroidism can also impair the metabolism of medications, leading to a toxic accumulation in the body. Congenital hypothyroidism is known as cretinism. It can lead to mental retardation and growth impairment if not treated. Hypersecretion of thyroid hormone can lead to a high metabolic rate, rapid heartbeat, weight loss, and the protruding eyes seen in the lower picture here, called exophthalmos. If not treated, hyperthyroidism can lead to an acute thyroid storm with an extremely high fever, rapid heart rate, delirium, and even death. Sometimes the immune system produces antibodies against the thyroid gland, an autoimmune attack. These antibodies can cause either hyposecretion or hypersecretion of thyroid hormone. Autoimmune hypothyroidism is called Hashimoto's disease. Autoimmune hyperthyroidism is called Graves' disease. This happens when the antibodies bind TSH receptors in the thyroid gland, triggering the release of excess amounts of thyroid hormone. This slide breaks down the formation of thyroid hormone in a slightly different way from your textbook. Your textbook illustrates the formation and release of thyroid hormone in figure 1811. That's page 612 of Martini. I've bolded the most important steps in this figure. First, thyroglobulin is synthesized in the follicular cells and secreted into the lumen of the colloid follicle. Meanwhile, you have some iodide picked up from the blood, transported through the follicular cell to the colloid follicle, where it's converted to iodine. In the follicle, iodine attaches to the tyrosine amino acids in the thyroglobulin protein. Thyroglobulin folds up on itself, bringing the iodinated tyrosines together. This iodinated, folded up thyroglobulin is endocytosed back into the follicular cell. Enzymes in the follicular cell chop up thyroglobulin into individual T4 and T3 molecules. Then these T4 and T3 molecules get transported back into the blood. Thyroid stimulating hormone, TSH, acts at a number of points here. TSH controls the iodide uptake in step 2. TSH increases thyroglobulin production in step 1. And TSH drives thyroglobulin endocytosis and cleavage in steps 6 and 7. Most circulating thyroid hormone is bound up to albumin, transthyretin, or thyroid-binding globulins. However, only free, unbound thyroid hormone can be taken up by the target cells. Because only the free thyroid hormone can actually be used, the protein-bound thyroid hormone acts as a reserve of thyroid hormone in the blood. Because you have this reserve, it may take a while to notice any reduction in thyroid hormone production. Let's switch gears a bit to talk about the other hormone produced by the thyroid gland, calcitonin. Calcitonin is produced by the parafollicular cells, shown here. The parafollicular cells are also known as the C cells. Can you guess what C stands for? Calcitonin seems to not be strictly essential. When patients have their thyroid gland removed due to hyperthyroidism, they do not need to have calcitonin replaced. When calcitonin is present, it lowers blood calcium levels by these two effects: inhibiting osteoclast activity and telling your bones to take up more calcium. This is the opposite of what parathyroid hormone does. So calcitonin is an antagonist to parathyroid hormone. Now let's talk about the parathyroid glands and parathyroid hormone. The parathyroid glands are typically located on the posterior surface of the thyroid gland. The actual number and exact location of the parathyroid glands vary from person to person. There are two types of cells in parathyroid tissue. Chief cells are the cells that actually secrete parathyroid hormone. Oxyphil cells are the other type of cell. We don't really know for sure what they do. They may be immature chief cells. This is another view of the histology of the parathyroid gland. It's difficult to tell the difference between the chief cells and the oxyphil cells. The chief cells tend to be smaller, with a central nucleus and less cytoplasm. The oxyphil cells, down here, tend to be bigger with more cytoplasm. The main function of parathyroid hormone is to maintain blood calcium levels. When blood calcium levels get too low, the parathyroid glands release parathyroid hormone. Parathyroid hormone acts on the bones, the kidneys, and indirectly on the intestines to raise blood calcium levels back up to normal. In the bone, parathyroid hormone activates osteoclasts. These cells break down bone tissue, releasing calcium into the blood. Parathyroid hormone causes the kidneys to reabsorb more calcium, so you don't lose as much calcium in your urine. Parathyroid hormone also tells the kidneys to activate more vitamin D, and then that vitamin D increases the absorption of calcium from your food. If parathyroid hormone levels get too low, you see a drop in blood calcium levels. Low levels of calcium actually increases the permeability of neurons to sodium. So, when you have low levels of calcium, your nervous system becomes much more excitable. You see numbness, twitches, convulsions. With high levels of parathyroid hormone, you get the opposite effect on the nervous system. Neurons become less responsive, and a patient may experience depression, anxiety, insomnia. Hypersecretion of parathyroid hormone also weakens the bones, as hyperactive osteoclasts leach calcium out of them. You may also see kidney stones or abnormal calcium deposits in tendons, joints, or skin. Although we've covered the thyroid and parathyroid glands together, remember that they're two very different organs. Remember that the story of the thyroid gland is primarily the story of thyroid hormone, but don't forget about calcitonin. And the story of the parathyroid gland is all about parathyroid hormone. That's easy to remember. And parathyroid hormone is all about calcium homeostasis. You can read more about these organs in your textbook on pages 609 to 615.